The Impact of World War II on America by Madison Hodrick and Robert DiMuccio. World War II was a tremendous turning point in history, especially for the United States of America. The country developed diplomatic, social, and economic adaptations to accommodate the amount of money, labor, and effort that had to be put into the war. After World War II, these developments continued to positively change the country and expand the rights and quality of life of the American people.
Diplomatically, World War II largely impacted America. In July 1947, the European Recovery Program was instituted at the Paris Economic Conference. The U.S. Secretary of State, George C. Marshall, urged that European countries sort out their economic needs so that material and financial aid from the United States could be integrated on a broad scale. And in April 1948, President Truman signed the act establishing the Economic Cooperation Administration. The objective of the Economic Cooperation Administration was to promote European production, bolster European currency, facilitate international trade, and enforce containment on the growing Soviet influence. America and the Soviet Union plunged into the Cold War after World War II because both nations were striving for power. It was so named the Cold War because the Soviet Union and the United States never met in direct military combat. Instead, they engaged in ongoing psychological warfare in their struggle for global influence. However, the Cold War ceased when the Soviet Union fell in 1991, leaving America on top.
World War II forever changed the United States socially. Women were urged into the workforce using a fictional character called Rosie the Riveter by government to replace men fighting in the war. Rosie the Riveter wore a red bandana, her sleeves were rolled up, and she was flexing her muscles. Her slogan was, "We can do it." She was a symbol of patriotic women, and she was a major success. Advertisements encouraging women to enter the workforce were not uncommon, most along the lines of, "Do the job he left behind." By 1944, over 19 million women had put down their aprons and picked up their toolboxes to work for their country. Women performed tasks that were considered manly, and they did them well. They worked in clothing industries as well as shipyards and airplane plants, where they served as steelworkers, riveters, and welders. For the first time in history, Black women could work in major industrial plants. The majority of the women in the workforce enjoyed working outside home. They felt a sense of pride and dignity in the work they were doing for the United States. Some even pursued careers after the war. However, when World War II ended, women were often turned away from manufacturing jobs. Men returning from combat wanted their jobs back, and more women were forced back into unemployment. Many women refused to go back to working at home as they had prior to the war. Women had gained pride in their skill to work, and feminism was strengthened, essentially resulting in female sports leagues and to the fall of discrimination of males and females. Rosie the Riveter had created a new generation of women.
Not only did women enter the workforce, but the American economy changed when the Great Depression that had started in 1938 finally drew to a close. Americans had started making many of their own products during the war and continued manufacturing these goods after the war. They manufactured products such as synthetic nylon socks to replace the silk socks previously imported from Japan. The United States found several ways to make money during the war, selling war bonds, certificates, notes, and stamps. America raised nearly $180 billion from such sales. Income increased and few were out of work. Revenue from income taxes soared, and the United States taxed entertainments and luxuries like jewelry and cosmetics. However, the American debt still increased from $49 billion in 1941 to $259 billion in 1945. The war required enormous amounts of ships, tanks, aircraft, and weaponry. The United States and Canada built new plants to manufacture war goods. 60,000 aircraft were produced in 1942, and 86,000 planes were produced in 1943. Shipbuilding gains were just as impressive. The time needed to build an aircraft carrier dropped from 36 months in 1941 to 15 months in 1945. America became a much more productive and independent country, which contributed to its rise in power in the world.
Despite the death, destruction, and trauma World War II caused, it essentially improved the general welfare of the United States. World War II helped America become one of the top most developed countries in the world. American women were also empowered during the Second World War. They finally received the right to work, which led to the decimation of discrimination of men and women. World War II also pulled the United States out of the Great Depression because there were more factories, commonly known as war babies, and the US no longer relied so heavily on other countries for imports. The country's newfound independence caused the US to thrive and overcome diplomatic, social, and economic issues.